Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Anna. Thanks so much for tuning in. Today we're going to be creating a Zendoodle using watercolor, bubbles, and ink. And as a gentle reminder, if you enjoy the video, please give it a thumbs up, or if you know someone else who might like it, go ahead and share, leave a comment, subscribe, turn on notifications, all that good stuff. It goes a long way in supporting the channel, and I really appreciate it. Also, fun announcement, you can now shop my 12-piece Galaxy series on my website. The link is in the description. I have tumblers, totes, prints, and a calendar in case you can't decide which piece you like best. Now, onto the project. For materials today, I'm using 140-pound hot press watercolor paper, which is smoother than cold press, so it's easier to doodle on. I also have my watercolor palette here, as well as a spray bottle to activate pigments. Today, I'm using a number 6 quill brush because it holds a lot of water. I have paper towels, and I have this bubble solution, which is 1 cup warm water, 1/4 cup dish soap, and 1.5 tablespoons of corn syrup or glycerin. To make bubbles, I have a whisk and a drinking straw, a little scrap paper to help maneuver the bubbles around, and then an artist pen. The full materials list is also in the description. Okay, so there are 3 layers to this Zendoodle. The first layer is the watercolor layer, so I'm just spritzing my palette here to activate the pigments. And for this first layer, I would recommend selecting 2 or 3 colors. I'm going to be doing a mixture of blues and greens. Once your pigments have been activated, which should only take about 30 seconds or so, load your brush with water and your first color and start applying random patches of color to your paper. And you do want a generous amount of water on your brush so the colors can flow and blend together easily. I'd also recommend leaving bits of white space on your paper just for contrast. And remember, there's no right or wrong way to do this. Just have fun with it and apply the patches to your heart's content. I will check in again when it's time for the next step. All right, I've applied my color patches and I just spritz the edges a little bit to draw some of the color out to the very edge of the paper. And I'm just soaking up a little bit of that excess water. We'll let this dry completely and then we will add our bubbles. Okay, the watercolor foundation is dry to the touch, so let's add our bubbles. And we're going to be tapping watercolor into the bubbles, so I'm going to spritz this metallic bronze with water to activate it. Now you can use any color for this, but I've found that metallics turn out really beautifully for this technique. Definitely use them if you've got them. Now for the bubbles, if you want smaller foamy bubbles for a more subtle texture, you can get this by whisking the bubbles. If you want bigger bubbles with more defined structure, use the drinking straw to blow bubbles into the solution like this. Personally, I think the drinking straw method is delightful and I could do it all day. I actually did do it all day, but I would recommend creating an overabundance of bubbles because you will definitely lose some in the transfer to the paper. So once you have a nice layer of bubbles to work with, scoop or scrape them onto the paper and then load your brush with a lot of water and a lot of color and tap that color into the bubble structure. Once the bubbles dry, it leaves behind this amazing texture that you can doodle around. And I just wanted to mention a couple of things while I'm laying down these bubbles. Number 1, don't accidentally drink the bubble solution. Trust me, it's very easy to do, so be mindful of that. And number 2, as I mentioned earlier, the bubble solution is made up of 1 cup of warm water, a 1/4 cup of dish soap, and a 1.5 tablespoons of either corn syrup or glycerin. And the addition of the corn syrup or the glycerin is to strengthen the bubbles so they don't pop quite as easily. Now, I didn't have any glycerin on hand, so I had to use corn syrup, and functionally the corn syrup works just fine. However, it is very sticky and messy, so in the future when I do this technique, I will probably be getting my hands on some glycerin because I think it'll just be a little bit cleaner. That's just something to keep in mind, but like I said, both options work just fine. So keep working through the bubble layer until you're satisfied with the amount of texture. I'm going to do the same and then let this dry completely before moving on to the final layer. And one last thing to note is that this layer does take a very long time to dry. You can speed things up by blow drying the paper. Personally, I tend to just let mine dry overnight. But I think in the future, I'll create multiple pieces so they can all dry overnight, and then I'll have a batch of bubbly watercolor foundations to doodle on. Just a thought. I'll check in again when it's time to do our doodles. All right, the bubbles have dried and our texture looks gorgeous. Time for some doodles. For my pen, I'm using a Faber-Castell Pitt Artist pen in black. I have a few different sizes, but I think I'll start with a 0.5mm nib. Now, if you're new to Zendoodling and don't really know where to begin, something I like to do is look for a bigger structure in the chaos in front of me. So for this piece, I noticed this fork in the middle of the paper looked kind of like a tree. So I'm making these meandering neurographic lines that just kind of loosely wind up and down the sides of the tree to define the trunk a little bit. And then I'm forking off of those lines to create branches that extend into the canopy. And then I'm going down below to kind of give the idea of a root system. So at the end of the day, all I'm really doing is repeatedly making these meandering lines. And it's the repetition that creates that meditative Zen-like feeling while you are engaging in a Zen doodle. Another thing that you could do is just find some pre-existing shapes. Like in this tree canopy, I noticed there are a bunch of circles, right? Because our bubble texture left those organic looking circle shapes behind. So I'm just gonna go and partially trace some of these, and I'll keep repeating that stroke until the section looks complete. And if you're looking at your piece right now and you're thinking, well, thanks, Anna, but I don't really see a tree, so what do you want me to do? And if that's the case, I would suggest finding the biggest circle left behind by your bubbles and starting to fill that with one of the 5 basic markings often used in Zen doodling. So that would be the C curve, like what I've been doing in the tree canopy, or the S curve. You could also do lines, dots, or circles. Pick any one of those 5 and start filling the space. So you could do, for example, nested C curves or nested S curves within the space. You could just draw some simple diagonal lines through the space. You could even make a border of small circles around the space and make kind of a whimsical looking flower. Once you pick the mark you want to make, start repeating it so you can get into a flow. And one thing will lead to another, and before you know it, you will have a beautiful Zen doodle unfolding in front of you. And to give you a visual of what I was just talking about, I'm filling these little spaces below the tree with small markings. I'm doing some with small circles, some with dots, some with diagonal lines, and some I'm just tracing and then leaving open. Once I finish filling those spaces, I'll see what else wants to come out, but I'm not going to worry about it until I get there. I'm just going to be present with what's in front of me. So the rocky hillside section looks done. And while I was doing that, this little crescent moon jumped out at me. So I'll lightly outline that. And then from here, I think I'll just add some delicate broken lines and a few dots. Okay, I think this Zendoodle is about done. I also think I'll be incorporating this bubble technique into my Zendoodles a lot more often. I just really love the texture, especially the metallic detail. But what about you? Share your thoughts in the comments. I always love to hear your ideas and feedback. And if you're still here with me at the very end, thank you so much for watching and for creating with me today. Until next time, take care.